In previous part of the video, we discussed how to change channel endorsement policy, how to bring in new organizations to an existing network, and how to work with chain code with private data collections. In this part of the video, we will talk about the artifacts created by Minifabric and how to use them with different tools like Visual Studio Code. Once you have a channel set up, you can run Minifab profile gen command. This command will produce a structure like the picture on the screen. The anchor peers.json file is produced to allow you to do channel update to set up anchor peer or peers for your Fabric network. As you may already know, without anchor peer, the dynamic service discovery will not find anything. With the JSON fragment in the file, updating the channel configuration to set up anchor peers becomes a lot easier. The endpoints.yaml file contains all older nodes endpoints and older TLCA certificates. The file should be used with Minifab node import command so that an organization which only sets up peer nodes can work with older system. This is especially important for an organization wanting to join an existing network. There are several files whose names start with a channel name. These files are the connection files for various Fabric SDKs as their name indicated. These files are normally needed when you develop applications using either Go SDK or Python SDK to connect to a Fabric network. Without Minifabric, you will have to create these files manually. Files under VSCode directory are the files that you can use when you work with the Fabric VSCode extension. You can use these files to connect to Minifabric created Fabric network and do transactions via VSCode. Minifabric packages all the files under VSCode into a tar gzipped file so that you can transfer the files to your target environment easily. Notice that this file contains admin's private keys. It is important to secure this file. A Fabric network can be very dynamic. When new organizations added and existing organizations become dormant. Knowing the current state of Fabric network is important when an application needs to get necessary endorsement for its proposals. That is probably the reason why dynamic service discovery was added to Fabric. To make everything working, each channel will need to have at least one anchor peer. Network admins can set up more anchor peers to prevent single point of failure. Without anchor nodes, your application most likely will have to use static information for transaction endorsement. When a Fabric network expands a lot in terms of its membership, your proposal may not be able to obtain enough endorsements. Using Discovery Service, not only you receive the information about endorsement requirements, but also the necessary certificates from the channel participating organizations. With the endorsers, endpoints, MSP ID, and the certificates, the application can easily send transaction proposals to the right places. Once you have your Fabric network up and running, all the channel created and chain code installed, you can run this command to generate the profiles and discover all the services. So now your profiles all generated and Discover service also finished. you can see that what we have found. These are the files get generated. And we can also see the discover command generated files. These are the files and directories generated. We also see this tar.gz file. Now let's switch to another machine which has Visual Studio Code installed. This is the environment, already has Fabric Visual Studio extension installed. And you can see after you open up VS Code, you should see this extension here, and shows the 4 sections for contract, environment, and the gateway. Currently, I don't have any of those items in any of those sections. So now I'm going to switch to the terminal. You can see we are on actually different machine. So let's go to the download directory and get the VS Code wallets file. So this is the machine that has the Fabric running. Let's get that file. Now we have this file retrieved from the machine that running Fabric network. Now let's untar zip this file. Okay, so we have a new directory called the VSCode, which has the VSCode node file and all the wallets. So now let's go to this section here. Let's import those wallets. So there's a few options here. We just need to select the first one, specify a existing file system wallet, because that's what Minifabric created. So we have 3 organizations, so we're gonna import one by one. Okay, you can see these example.com organizations admin wallet now is imported. Let's do 2 other ones. So now you can see we have 3 organizations. Each organization has one user named admin. Okay, once we have those wallets imported, then we can import all the nodes. So the option here will be use add any other Fabric network, just like any production grade Fabric network. So in this case, we'll give a name. We'll call this system Minifabric. And then we will provide the JSON file. This is the file included in the VSCode tar file. We just unzip them. Okay, so this actually adds all the nodes that in the Fabric network into this VS code environment. Now this is imported, and we can click on this. Now you need to associate the admin to those organizations. Since we already imported the wallet, so we can simply choose the existing identity. In this case, we're dealing with CA1 org0, so we pick this, then we use the admin. We say no. Then we have one more CE node we need to associate the ID with. Okay, now as soon as we associate those ID with all the node, then we already connected with the Fabric network, and you can see that VS Code already show that we have installed chain code, and we have instantiated the chain code as well. Okay, so of course there's the same chain code, they just listed in a different section, and it should also list the channels. Remember this channel name, my channel, is the default channel that Minifabric always set up. If you have other channels also created in the Fabric, this should also show them. Okay, so we imported the environment. We also imported the wallets. Now it's time to create a gateway so we can invoke some chain code. Okay, in this case, we'll just create a gateway from a Fabric environment. So I just use the default name VS Code give us. And the organization we want to use for this gateway, let's say this is for org0. So let's pick this one. And choose the CA. Okay, so we successfully added a new gateway. Now, if we click on this, we can see the channels, then we can see the chain code. Now with this, if we right click on it, we actually can submit a transaction. Before we do that, you probably notice there's some errors in the message section. The reason is that we develop all the chain code using Go, not using whatever the VS Code extension supports. So that's why you see some of these errors. But those errors does not affect you to invoke the chain code. let's try to invoke a chain code. So the method we want to invoke, or the function, is the invoke. And then we need to give some parameters. Let's just do 5 here. And I give you option for transient data, because this is not chain code dealing with private data collections. So we will just skip that. Now this asks you where you want to send your proposals to. Since we have the endorsement policy to be majority, so we cannot use the default one. We will just pick 2 peer nodes, one from each organization, to send the transactions to. We pick 2. We click on OK. Now you can see that VS Code is trying to submit the transaction to the Fabric network that we use the Minifabric setup. Okay, now the VS Code actually tells us it successfully submitted the transaction. Okay, so in the output window, you will also see the messages. And you probably see some warnings as well. That's because, as I said earlier, we're not using Java or JavaScript for our chain code. This simple chain code actually was developed using Go language. That's the reason why it's showing this error message. Okay, we just submitted one transaction. Let's try to query that. So if we do a query, let's say we're trying to find the value for account A. Because of this query, we just need to pick one peer to send the transaction to. Okay, so this also says the transaction was successful. Now you can see the returned value is 195. If we switch back to the machine that running the Fabric network, we can do a block query. This should show you the transaction we did. See, we actually did a query. And if we try to do the previous block, so the latest is number 5, the previous one should be 4. So if we do this one, we should see the first transaction we did in VS Code. And you can see that the transaction we did in VS Code shows up here. In this part of the video, we talked about the artifacts created by Minifabric and how to use them with different tools, including Fabric VS Code extension. In the next part of the video, we will reveal some of the secrets of Minifabric, how Minifabric was developed and designed, and some of the tricks that you can use when you work and learn Hyperledger Fabric.